very glad to be with you today, and thank you to TEDxNCU for the invitation. I'm going to start with a very unpleasant memory, which takes us to just back to June of this year. I presume most of you were here. In June, in Beijing, in Taipei, we had a fire at a water park, and about 500 people were burned very seriously, and some of them died. And I hope none of you here were part of that or know anybody who was. Why do I bring this up? Obviously, it's an unpleasant memory. Why do we talk about it? It's because it wasn't the only case of its kind in Taiwan over the past year or year and a half. If we look back at 2014 and 2015 so far, almost done, we find some other things that have occurred. For example, in the middle of 2014, in Penghu, a Trans-Asia airliner went down and more than 40 people died. Half a year later, the same airline dropped another airplane right outside of Taipei, right outside the airport, a few minutes after takeoff. Same airline, almost the same number of people, I think more than just over 40. And that's not all. A month after the first plane crash in Kao-Shiung, what happened? A series of gas lines underground exploded and caught fire, and another 30 people died, more than that perhaps, and 300 were hurt. And it's scary, right? I keep saying and, which means there are more and more things that I have to tell you. Something else that happened in Taichung, in central Taiwan, a bridge or an elevated structure for the future MRT line there fell over, and I think 4 people died. More recently, this is kind of a slower case, but for those of you who are from the south, if you're from Tainan or Kao-Shiung, you probably know this better than I or anybody else, which is dengue fever. Bad year, right? We've had, I believe, at least 140 people dying from this disease, which is carried by mosquitoes. A lot of them are older people. Maybe you're the age of your grandparents. Sometimes they don't even know they're getting bitten because the mosquitoes, they're used to the mosquitoes, they're always there, and suddenly they're in the hospital with a really bad cold that turns into achy bones, which turns into something worse. As a journalist, I thought about this, and I thought, hey, is this just a really bad year for Taiwan? Is it just kind of crazy? Is it something we can forget about? These things happen in other countries too. Taiwan's no exception. But I started to think some more, and I think that there's more to it. There's a real problem. And I would describe that problem as being a lack of oversight. And oversight can mean on the part of the people involved. These are all human-caused issues. These are not earthquakes and typhoons, which are caused by nature. These are caused by humans. And humans are human. We all make mistakes, so we need support, we need oversight, we need supervision. And that can come from our supervisors, that can come from government agencies, it can come from our peers, it can come from the people next to you. People next to you might say, hey, Doctor, you're talking too loud. You know, they just kind of warn you sometimes. That's part of a civil society. But oversight is lacking, which is not because a lack of rules. There's two different things. Taiwan has plenty of rules, plenty of laws, plenty of regulations, and they're very involved sometimes. They're very complex. The problem is that these rules just kind of sit there on the books and they're not followed. And that's where it becomes more interesting. Why aren't these rules followed? One thing is that complaints are relatively rare. I'm from the United States, where complaints are too frequent. People like to file lawsuits. People like to write letters to the editors of newspapers about any little thing that happens. There's a culture of complaining, which can be pretty annoying sometimes. People complain when they don't need to. But sometimes it's a good thing because it makes other people who are doing things wrong start to wake up and to start to pay attention. Now, sometimes people don't complain because they don't understand why they need to complain. For example, if you're walking down the street during a holiday, or like a traditional Chinese holiday anywhere in Taiwan, and there are these little balls of fire going off. They're firecrackers. As adults, we look at them and say, firecrackers, we know what they do, they're no problem. But what if there's a car passing and there's some gas on the bottom of the chassis of the car, or there's some other flammable liquid that's still there? Or what if you're a child and you don't really know that these are little balls of fire that can hurt you? It's a problem, right? How about you're walking down the street and you're in the arcade level on the sidewalk, and you see that they're doing some construction, they're remodeling. Maybe a coffee shop is shutting down and a convenience store is coming in, and they need to remodel the whole thing. And they should be putting up some tape or a barrier or signage saying, "Be careful, watch out." But do they? Not always. Sometimes, as a pedestrian, I'm walking down the street and I'm kind of in a hurry, and I'm not paying that much attention either. I walk on the same roads every day, and I look up. Well, there's a guy up there, and that guy's got a big piece of plywood that could fall on my head, and he's got a hammer, and he's got a drill. So maybe I should have been warned. But if you get used to that, then you don't think too much about it. Well, these are people who are paid to do the remodeling job. These are experts in firecrackers from a temple, and they should know what to do in order to be safe. But is there any oversight? And why don't people say anything when they could say something? If they're concerned, if they recognize the danger, they should say something. A couple other examples. If you live in a narrow alley, if you're not on a big street, you live in an alley that's maybe wide enough for 2 cars to pass. One goes that way, the other comes that way, and they almost hit each other. The 2 side view mirrors almost hit each other. Well, what if you're a fire truck and you need to get in there because somebody's home is burning? That's a problem, right? Safety hazard. The home burns, the fire truck can't get in. So, another possible problem that people really don't talk about. People don't complain. They're used to it. They see it every day. They don't know they should say something to somebody else. That's part of oversight. People can oversee other people. Another example, I ride my bike sometimes in the city of Taipei, and there are a lot of issues with cycling in Taipei. One of them is that motor vehicles tend to double park. Double parking means there's already a car on the side of the road, and somebody else's car comes along and parks next to that car that's already parked on the side of the road. Why is that a problem if you're a bicycle rider? Because you have to go around that other car, and then you're in another lane where there's more traffic coming by, maybe a large bus or utility truck. The bicycle gets pushed further out into traffic, which is dangerous. It's already dangerous. The double parking makes it more dangerous. So, there's a lack of oversight. These things happen all the time, every day. We see them, but we don't notice them. We don't think too much about them because we're used to it. It's a habit. We just see them there. And we hope that people are nice and that they remember to be safe. We hope that the people who held that concert in Xinbei in June would recognize that this powder they were using was flammable. It caused problems. They didn't know. They didn't do anything. They really didn't know. And nobody else knew either. One temptation here, especially in, I think, Taiwan and some other societies, is to blame the government. Well, the government should be doing more. Always blame the government. This agency should do more. That agency should do more. More police, more code enforcement, more permits. Well, we could say that. However, this is a democracy. Who runs the government? People do. People elect the government. And the government is responsible for many, many things. They are responsible for oversight, but we are responsible for overseeing the people who are doing the oversight. This is why we need to raise our hands and say something when there's a problem. There's a theory that powerful people always do the right thing, they naturally do the right thing. Maybe it goes back to Confucianism. But maybe it's not true either. Maybe powerful people don't always do the right thing. Maybe they take shortcuts. Maybe they don't even know where the danger is. The pilots of the airplanes, the operators of the aircraft that crash, the builders of the MRT lines, do they know? And do they care? What do the police do? They watch a lot of things. They stand on corners, they drive their cars around, they drive their motor scooters around. What do? They respond to complaints, usually. If you have a complaint, if there's a loud dog in your neighborhood, if there's too much noise, if somebody's parking in your parking space, then you can call the police. Otherwise, they tend to do very little. It's complaint-based. But if nobody's complaining, the police aren't that helpful. Sometimes people are afraid to complain. They might fear a backlash. They fear that if I complain about you, and she knows you, and I need a favor from her someday, well, that's a problem for me, right? So I want to be harmonious. I want to make everybody happy and make myself happy, not cause any disruption. So I let these things happen. Even though I know they're problems, I just let them continue to happen. Anybody live in an apartment building where somebody came along and the rooftop used to be flat, and all of a sudden somebody went in there and put another building in there, built an extra flat for themselves on the roof, but it's a public roof? Would you say anything? Would you tell the management? Would you tell this person building the illegal structure on the public rooftop? A lot of people probably wouldn't do that. Who is this person building on the rooftop? Is it a powerful, influential person who could make your life difficult if you complained? Maybe. Another problem. Anyway, Taiwan has a lot going for it. It's often described as a modern society. Nobody here is living in horrible poverty. We don't have $1 a day lifestyle problem in Taiwan. People have enough money in general to live a decent life. Taiwan has been industrializing since the 1960s, and we're seeing the prosperity that comes from that. Economically, Taiwan has one of the the best rated democracies in the world. The balance of power keeps changing from one party to another. That's a good thing. It's good to have that kind of democracy. It keeps government honest. And so, Taiwan has the resources. It has the money, it has the industry, it has the government institutions. Namely, it has the democracy. It has the whole framework that it takes to provide oversight. But it lacks a bit of quality of life. There is a lot of noise here. There is a lot of illegal parking. There are other problems in Taiwan that have not caught up with the economic prosperity and the degree of democratization. Safety hazards, the safety issues, the fires, the plane crashes, the building collapses, things like that. Those are one way of evaluating the lack of quality of life, or the things that we are missing in the quality of life. That's one way to look at it. Public safety. Quality of life means we live without the fear of disasters caused by the people around us. There's a woman here from Stanford University. I think she may have left already, but she was here doing her PhD thesis. She picked Taipei to do her PhD thesis in what? In noise. Because there's so much noise in Taipei. The noise in every Asian city, in every city in the world. But there's so much noise in Taipei that she decided to come and do her thesis on noise here, not somewhere else. And sleep experts have complained about the level of urban noise noise in the big cities and how it prevents people like us from getting a good night's sleep, which means we end up taking naps in the middle of the day, and maybe that hurts our work, hurts our performance. Another example of quality of life that could be changed if somebody stood up and tried to change it, offered to change it. What about the dengue fever case? What's the real problem there? Well, standing water. Water in the bowls that your dogs drink out of, and your potted plants outside, and maybe your wash basin that you use for washing clothes. Everybody knows that these are the sources of mosquitoes. Mosquitoes breed in standing water. But who's making the public dump out their standing water? Is anybody doing that? Somebody should be. Somebody should be telling the government to make people dump out that water so that fewer people get sick from mosquito bites. Nobody's doing that. People like their modernity. There's this phrase, right? The little piece of happiness. That's what happens when you suddenly have money. Suddenly everybody's prosperous. A little piece of happiness. Democratic and prosperous. I'll take you back to a good example from earlier, last year. The sunflower movement. Tens of thousands of students demonstrated against Taiwan's China engagement policies, and they were successful. They stopped a bill from going through. They made the government rethink how it dealt with China. They made the Chinese send representatives here to meet with students and the lower classes and ask what was going on, and they did. So that means progress requires people to tell their government, we want something to be different. We're tired of this poor quality of life. We're tired of safety problems. If you can do it for a political cause, you can also do it for a public safety cause, and I would encourage you to do that. Thank you very much.